Really quick, I was going through a set of old audio files that I have, and I found this video clip or audio clip of Victor, and decided, hey, let's use this upload as a second half tonight. Just because I have not heard this audio file from Victor since 2021. And I figured, you know what? Let's share it. It's really nice to hear his voice. I miss him a lot. Let's let you guys hear it too. So that's what this second half is, in case anyone's wondering. Well, greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is still doing well, and welcome to tonight's second half. Before we jump into it, a couple links. As many of you all know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman, Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It doesn't cost a cent. Click the like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads I put out daily, click that bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment. Why? Well, because all of these things really do help the channel to continue to grow and go. And yes, folks, they definitely do matter. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to tonight's second half, shall we? Today's first encounter. Tom was a pretty avid caver. He had spent 12 years serving as an engineer in the U.S. military, and during his training at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. He had been introduced to the sport of spelunking. When he left the Army in '92, he continued to explore the underground, when he moved back to Missouri and rented a small house near the small community of Eldridge in northern Laclede County. Tom formed a small local cavers group for experienced spelunkers, and most weekends would find them exploring some of the many cave systems in Missouri and Arkansas. However, one weekend, while caving alone, Tom had an experience so bizarre and so disturbing, he never told anyone, including his caving buddies, about it. It was only many years later that he felt able to write it down and describe his experience. It was 1995 that Tom decided to explore a cave in Camden County, Missouri. The cave was large and part of a much larger system, but the entrance was difficult to access and hidden. As far as the community of local cavers were aware, it hadn't been explored for many years. Tom wriggled his way into the entrance without difficulty and began to explore several connected chambers, each musty and damp. Finally, he reached what he assumed was the last cave in the series. He then began to hear an odd rustling sound, which at first he took for water running or perhaps just bats. However, he realized that the sound was coming from an opening in the end of the wall. It was about 10 feet up from the ground. With some difficulty, Tom climbed the wall until his head was level with the rectangular opening, which was flat and narrow and too small to crawl through. The first surprise was that the opening was just a few feet long and led through to a larger limestone place which appeared to be artificially lit. The second surprise was the waft of warm, acidic, vinegary-smelling air that emanated from the opening. And the third was that in the large space beyond, Tom could see a small, squat vehicle that looked a little like a golf cart, but without wheels. The last surprise was that Tom could hear footsteps inside the limestone room, which were getting closer. Tom was stunned as a very large creature began to come into view. It was 7 feet tall, humanoid, with brown, scaly skin. It had 2 legs, powerfully muscular-looking arms, and a powerful tail, which dragged on the ground as it walked. Its face looked vaguely human, but it lacked hair or ears, and there was a distinct ridge on the back of its head, which extended down over its neck to the upper back. As Tom watched, the creature stopped, seemingly to examine the small vehicle. Suddenly the creature turned and looked directly towards Tom and uttered a horrible hissing sound. That was enough. Tom scrambled back down into the cave and then out into the open air as quickly as possible. When he finally got back to his parked vehicle, he was still shaking and hyperventilating him. It took some time before he was calm enough to drive home safely. Tom was terrified and deeply unsettled by this encounter, but it sounded so completely insane that he decided not to talk about it with his caving buddies. Some years later, he went back to the cave in Camden County, intending to explore it again. However, he discovered that the land on which the entrance was located was now part of a military compound, and he was not able to gain access. It would be easy to write Tom's experience off as a hallucination or a delusion, or simply a caver's tall tale, if it wasn't for the fact that many number of people have reported underground encounters with very similar creatures in other areas of the United States. The idea that creatures with an advanced civilization live beneath the surface of the earth first came to prominence just as World War II ended in 1945. In 1943, a man named Richard Sharp Shaver had written to Ray Palmer, the editor of Amazing Stories magazine, with a truly amazing story. Shaver explained how he had become aware of a race of degenerate, sadistic creatures, which he called Darrows, living beneath the surface of the earth. These creatures, he explained, were descendants of an advanced race who had constructed the vast system of underground structures in which the Darrows lived and created the machines which kept these areas habitable, which had fled the earth for another planet many thousands of years ago. Darrows, he explained, were kidnapping large numbers of humans and using them as food or victims to be tortured in order to satisfy the sadistic needs. Shaver also went on to describe how he had been captured and held prisoner by the Darrows for several years. Palmer was stunned by this correspondence and expanded Shaver's description of his experience into a novella, I Remember Lemura, which was published in the March of 1945 issue of Amazing Stories. Although this story was clearly a work of fiction, Palmer explained that it had been inspired by real-life events of Shaver. This issue of the magazine sold out, and Palmer was flooded with letters from people who claimed to have had similar experiences. Richard Shaver continued to write vast screeds of fiction, mostly associated with the underground world of Darrows, which became generally known as the Shaver Mystery, and claiming to be fictionalized account of real events. For several years, Shaver's stories featured in almost every copy of Amazing Stories, and in other popular magazines of a period including Fantastic Adventures, Otherworld Science Stories, and Fantastic Magazine. Shaver Mystery Group were formed in many U.S. cities, and even the mainstream press began to pick up the idea of cave dwellers ascended from advanced race. When UFOs became a major topic in 1947, many people thought that these were the cave-dwelling Darrows claiming that UFOs were not craft piloted by aliens, but by the Darrows. Shaver's idea gradually fell out of favor, especially as his stories seemed to dwell extensively on the claimed sadomasochistic behavior of the Darrow, and there were those who claimed that Shaver's claims were nothing more than a manifestation of his mental illness. By the 1960s, Shaver's idea had virtually been forgotten, but despite this, people continued to have encounters with very odd creatures in caves underneath the United States and elsewhere. In 2011, a caver in an abandoned salt mine in northern Austria saw several tall, muscular lizard-like creatures with long tails. Sun Dong Cave, near the Vietnam-Laos border, in the largest known cave passage in the world, the main cave is more than 5 kilometers long. There have been a number of sightings in the Sung Dong devil creatures, which have been described as walking on 2 legs, but looking like dragons or lizards. Reports have also emerged from U.S. servicemen who served in Vietnam, who also claimed sightings of several creatures in caves. One report from a corporal involved with a patrol about 30 kilometers south of the demilitarized zone described seeing 2 creatures emerge from the cave. A being I first thought was a man moved through the entrance into a clearing in front of the cave. As it stood up from a crouch, it stood at least 7 feet tall and started to look in our direction. At that time, another similar figure was moving out of the cave. They were making hellish hissing sounds and looking directly at us. The only way I can describe these creatures is that they look like an upright lizard. The scaly, shiny skin, very dark, almost black. Snake-like faces with forward-set eyes that were very large. They had arms and legs like a human, but with scaly skin. And it's not just underground that these creatures have been spotted. Between 1988 and 2015, in the Scape Ore Swamp in Bishopsville, South Carolina, there have been a number of sightings of what has become known as the Lizard Man, a 7-foot-tall reptile-like creature with red eyes and green scaly skin. The creature is claimed to have attacked more than just one person and is blamed for the disappearance of many house pets. One of the most striking things about these descriptions of the encounter with the strange creatures underground, and there are many more, and elsewhere, is the similarity that they seem to be describing a real creature, though it is one that does not exist according to conventional science. All right, everybody, really quick, he is just with me for a short little bit of time, but everybody has been asking, where is Victor, what's Victor up to, and I thought it would be nice if Victor could come on and wish everybody a happy new year and let everybody know in the next little bit here, me and Victor will be getting together to share a couple of things with you guys. And yeah, so Victor, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. How's everybody out there?
Well, I'm doing good.
That's great.
So everybody's been asking about you, and I just figured it'd be nice to start the new year with a happy new year.
Well, I wish everybody out there a happy new year. I just landed in Denver today, and I'm actually driving home right now.
Well,
I am retired.
Officially. And now we are going to be, you and I are going to work on the book.
Yes.
Your book, and we'll figure everything out from there. But yeah, I just wanted everybody to know what was going on because people have been asking. So.
Yep, that's what's going to happen. That's our plans right now.
All right. Well.
All right.
It was great talking to you. I'm going to let you get back to your drive and back to your family. And this way people know what's going on, and we will keep everyone in the loop.
Okay. All the family's back in Georgia.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right, buddy.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. Today's second encounter. The beautiful mountain range of the Ozark Mountains is a joyous experience which everyone should see and love. But these mountains have many secrets which, if you unravel, could cause fear amongst the locals and tourists who venture into those pretty forests of the mountain range, which has majestic creeks, rivers, ponds, and gorgeous meadows. One would think if God or the universe were a painter that it would take a long time to paint the beauty of these mountains. This encounter took place in these mountains, and I, being a fan of the forest for a long time since I can remember, I've spent many precious moments in the Ozarks, which I would not miss at all. But now, since I've encountered a creature which I can only describe as Dogman, my perception has changed and my caution has gone up a notch, although I must admit that my encounter was not so bad, and who knows, maybe these Dogmen aren't all vile. Perhaps they just want to be left alone. But this speculation is another story and a theme in its own right and own device. Now I'd like to commence on telling you my personal encounter with the Dogman, which was on a beautiful autumn day. I think it must have been the 5th or 7th of November, for I recall that it was quite chilly in the morning when I started hiking near Roland, heading for the wonderful Lake Mamel. The day was sunny, and I could hardly hear a bird sing in the forest. On this day, which I have named Dogman Day because this was the day, and had me a believer in this phenomenon. I also would like to mention that I hardly met a fellow hiker on this day, and especially during the first hour of my hike. I could feel a great placidness, which had a touch, or should I better say a shade of solitude. This was one of those days that could give a hiker a feeling of being alone, and if he was open-minded and in tune with nature. So it came to pass that I stopped a few times before I arrived near the shore of Mamel Lake, which was especially on this day a world of its own. The wonderful blue-gray color of the lake fascinated my avid mind, which was just full of pioneer spirit and yearning for those days when there were Indian tribes, cowboys, and trappers. With this state of mind, I gazed at the lake and showed my highest respect for its individual expression of the Ozark Mountains, wide range of wondrous features of its unique being. If one would take into account that the Ozarks were a living, breathing creature of nature, which always had new things, new surprises for the open mind and brave hiker, who felt like a mountaineer of the early 19th century. After enjoying the lake for a while, I decided to go further towards the Ouachita National Forest, which was about 9 or 10 miles away. There I wanted to visit the Lake Winona and camp for a few days. I really loved the mountainous forest of Ouachita National Forest, but I actually never got there because sometimes things don't turn out the way we plan, do they? As I was going further away from the man-made Lake Mamel, I thought that something or someone was following me. I was walking near the road to maintain some sort of good orientation in spite of knowing the region well. The first strange thing that I recall, which could have associated my experience with the Dogman, was I heard something moving very fast as I walked from W. Hundley Road to the Willette Branch through the forest and partly rugged country. The weird thing was that this thing was keeping a good distance, about 200 yards, but still I was able to hear it moving swiftly through this countryside. Could this be a bear or a big deer? They don't come around so often, do they? Or do they even move that fast? I thought while my emotions and feelings were making my mind and body go crazy. A few minutes passed until the fast, or should I say very fast, movement stopped. Now it was quiet again, but strangely, very quiet. I would go as far to say too quiet for the Ozark Mountain forests. I tried to clear my mind and didn't bother any more to think about what it had been. because I was just totally concentrated on my hike and had no intention on ruining the rest of my day with worries or doubts, which, only as a matter of fact, would have destroyed my good spirit and my extremely good mood at that time. So I walked in, and after an hour entered Ochita National Forest, which was beautiful and teeming with wildlife. As I was wandering through the forest with awe and tranquility, I noticed that something or someone was still following me. The weird thing was that I could feel the energy, and it gave me a feeling of unease. At times I stopped and looked around because I wanted to know who or what was following me. What was going on? Was I imagining things? Had I smoked a little too much weed in my youth? After thinking that, I thought I heard a snarling sound, which really made me feel nervous, for I'd never heard such a sound before, and trust me, I've been in the woods and know most of the animals' sounds, and this one was not familiar with me. While thinking, I totally forgot my surroundings, and then I could suddenly feel the breath of a big animal, probably snorting behind me. I turned to see what animal this could be, and then I saw something dashing past me. I only caught a glimpse of it. I was stunned for a moment, and then I realized that this animal was extremely fast. What could it be? A bear doesn't run that fast, nor does a cougar, I thought. I started to become worried and a bit distraught, and decided to chill out for a while and just lie on the ground. Lying on the ground, I gazed up at the trees and the beauty of today, and my mind began to migrate itself. Happiness seemed to return to my being. I must say, if I want to be correct, because I will still expound on that, what happened only a few hours later. Time passed, and I can't exactly recall how I spent my time until I had my first real glance at this magnificent beast. That I did, at the end, not really perceive as a great threat, although I am sure that there might have been some kind of evil or whatever to this creature, but who am I to judge? As I was hiking, and it must have been around 6 p.m. already, because I was already quite near Lake Winona, when I heard the growling noise of some sort. At first, I thought that it might have just been a stray dog. But then, when I heard it again and again until it finally stopped, I commenced to think about the possibilities, that it might have been something to do with the strange occurrences I had a few hours back. I was also almost to the Lake Winona, and wanted to put my tent up at a nice spot where I could enjoy the lake and beautiful forest. The moment I reached the lake and made myself a cozy little campfire and put my tent up, then I remembered that I made the decision to lie down in the tent for a couple of hours to relax and be at peace again with myself. This was so important for me then and now, for peace and stability are the pillars of a nice life. At least, that's the way I see it. After lying in the tent for a while, strange things started happening. The first thing was I could clearly see the shadow of a dog-like figure striding around my tent. Then I could hear some snarling and growling, and as I took a peek out of my tent, I could see something that was absolutely awesome, in the true sense of the word. Standing on the shore, about 50 yards away from my tent, was this humongous creature, which, after my estimation, would guess to be 12 to 14 feet tall. But that was just a wild guess, because I was far enough from it to not really be able to give him a more precise estimate of its height. The creature had pointed ears and amber-looking eyes. The creature was hairy, possessed a large snout. I think that its fur must have been black with a brown undertone, but I'm not really sure, because it was already quite dark, and a bit after dusk. After a while, I sensed that it knew that I was staring at it, and the strange thing was that it did not focus on me gazing at it with total amazement and dash off in awe or haze. The eyes, for me, were the most fascinating thing it possessed. For an instant, I thought that these amber eyes could change their color at will. I don't know what I was looking for or what it was exactly doing on the shore of Lake Winona, but I know damn sure that it could have easily killed me if it wished to. This creature was right out of a horror movie, and I can understand that it is hard to believe that something like a Dogman can exist in our so-called world of reason and logic. I know that this sounds pretty out of the ordinary or totally berserk and crazy, but I'm just saying and recalling what I experienced, and I challenge every doubter to go out into the woods or to a place where they have been spotted multiple times and experience an encounter for themselves, because I reckon that one can only believe in such a thing, or let's say, a lot more probable to believe in a Dogman if someone has seen it themselves. Then, after about 5 or 10 minutes, the Dogman vanished. And if I say vanished, it really did, because it was gone from one moment to the next and really astounded me. Because now I know that it was very probable that this Dogman had been following me, or at least observing me. After that, everything was quiet, and I fell asleep. I woke up quite early in the morning to the sound of birds chirping. I packed my tent and got all my stuff. Then I continued to hike for the next couple of days, and I recall that everything went fine, and I spent a marvelous time in the Ouachita National Forest. Nothing strange happened again, only the last day of my hike when I was returning home on a little detour and on another route. I had another encounter with the Dogman. Probably this one, but who can really tell, because some of them look very similar, and it was dark as I had it. The encounter must have been on some road which I was hitchhiking because my car was at my house and my cell phone was not with me. I had another encounter with the Dogman. I'm not sure which road, but I guess that it was probably Hot Springs Highway near Benton. Maybe I'm confused, I don't know. I think it was around 9 or 10, and everything was quiet. There was a cold breeze. I was hiking near the road and following it to Benton, where I wanted to take a bus to Little Rock to a friend's house. Suddenly, I had this feeling again as if someone or something was watching me, and then the Dogman appeared, approximately 50 feet in front of me. It was a tall creature, perhaps 10 feet in height, and as I mentioned before, I'm not sure if this was the one that I had seen earlier. The Dogman snarled and then just stared at me, as if it wanted to tell me something. And then something really weird happened. I thought, and now I think, I might have really take this into account. I heard a voice telling me to respect the Dogman and not venture into the woods at night, because that was the time when they were hunting. And now comes the really weird part. As the voice ceased talking to me, the Dogman disappeared, and I was truly intrigued. Well, that is actually all that I have to say in regards to the Dogman. By the way, I want to stress that I never went into the forest at night again, and since then, I have never had another encounter with a Dogman in Ouachita County, or anywhere in the state of Arkansas, although I am aware that there have been, and still are, multiple sightings in the United States and the rest of the world. All I can say is that if you respect this creature, it may just leave you alone most of the time, but of course, you should not be hiking during the night, because nighttime is their hunting time. With all said, I wish you a God blessing and a wonderful time in Ouachita County, if you ever happen to visit there. And there you have it, my friends, tonight's second half. I hope you all enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. I'd like to thank you all for supporting the channel. Your support is, after all, what helps the channel to continue to grow and go, and honestly, what gives people a chance and a place to share their experiences and theories judgment-free. Thank you. Please stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, our pets, family, friends. These creatures are real, they are out there and dangerous. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for answers, and God bless.